I'd now like to pick up on what you were just saying, Ian, and get into some country-specific risks. And you just mentioned Iran. Yeah. The new administration enters with the idea of engagement with Iran. Do you think we're on track with that? Do you think the recent events in Israel-Palestine are going to get that off track, or where are we, and what do you see as the sort of the next chapter in that story?
The United States is clearly going to try to engage diplomatically with the Iranian government, but the likelihood that that precludes them from continuing on the nuclear program, I think, is very, very limited. I think the U.S. recognizes that. The Europeans also recognize that. We have both Iranian and Israeli elections coming up very soon. Right. And that creates a domestic imperative in both countries around national security. In Israel, the political spectrum has shifted to the right. In Iran, with low oil prices, for the existing president to stay in power, he needs to get away from economic issues and talk national security. Both of those create risks around conflict over Iran's nuclear program. Mm-hmm. And I think the real question, I think it's very clear, the Obama administration is not going to engage in military strikes against Iran. In fact, it's pretty clear from the New York Times piece we saw a couple weeks ago that the Bush administration, though pressed very hard by Israel, decided definitively that they weren't going to do it. They talked about some covert actions trying to disrupt the Iranians. That leaves Israel. So are the Israelis going to attack Iran to stop them from developing nuclear weapons, or at least to slow them down? I think the first point is they might. And if they do, it's going to have significant ramifications for stability in the whole region. But if they don't, they do see this next year as their last best opportunity to clear up problems with Hamas, Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, all supported in part by Iran, before the Iranians go nuclear, before it becomes more difficult for them to do so. Mm-hmm. And so either way, this is the year that Iran-Israel becomes a serious risk for stability. Mm-hmm.
And is that an opportunity or a threat to the Obama administration? I mean, how does that timing sync up?
There's not that much that Obama is going to be able to do about that. I think he's going to try very, very hard to prevent the Israelis from engaging in strikes, like the Bush administration did. He hopefully will be effective in that regard. It's going to be a tough one. The good news is that as long as you get through 2009 and 2010, Iran becomes less of a risk.
The new Secretary of State, Senator Clinton, in her confirmation hearing said we're going to use smart power, which is the new slogan for our diplomatic efforts, which I presume is to be a combination of hard power and soft power. It would seem to me there are targets of opportunity vis-a-vis some of our, I want to say, sort of problematical allies, if you will. I mean, so for example, the Russians, right? I mean, you know, they're not necessarily adversaries, but they're not necessarily allies or adversaries. But what do you see as the prospects for finding some common interests with some of these sort of problematic, I'll call them allies, like the Russians, because there are areas where we could clearly, if we decide to, try to find ways to cooperate. Do you see it moving in the cooperation direction or in the conflict?
I mean, I don't think that Russia is an ally at this point. I think very few people in Washington actually see it as such. But that doesn't mean there are no opportunities. Right. There are certainly opportunities with other problematic adversaries, like Cuba, where we could see a loosening of remittances, we could see a loosening of travel restrictions, and relations with Cuba could pick up quite a bit in the near term under an Obama administration. I think there's good reason to believe it might. Venezuela is in a lot of trouble. Chavez is in a lot of trouble. It probably won't go in the right direction because he's probably going to lose power over the short to medium term. But there's another opportunity for Obama perhaps to say, look, there's a new sheriff in town. Right. We can talk. Right. We can talk. On Russia, I think that the Obama administration's already showed that they want to back off a little bit on sort of this more assertive getting the Ukrainians and Georgians quickly with a membership action plan into NATO. The missile defense rollout and implementation into Eastern Europe. But despite that, Russia relations, I think, are going to be pretty bad. We've seen that with the Ukraine energy shutdown. The Russians, even with Putin as popular as he is, Medvedev as popular as he is, the fact is they're under massive economic pressure, and there is a lot of incentive to blame somebody. And that blame is going to go external.
And there's nothing that can be done on this side to mitigate that, or
I
maybe
think
marginal things?
I'd use
Yeah.
this is kind of a good place for the Hippocratic Oath, right?
Right.
I mean, let's not make it worse. Let's do no harm. I think if Obama can actually get through 2009 having done no harm on the Russia-U.S. relationship, that would be a reasonable outcome.